Really like those Maui ones, let me tell you. And they're a little bit warmer than here, but it's the same thing everywhere. They require you to get permits. And you know what? What are the first 5 principles of the First Amendment? They are freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to peaceably assemble. You do not need a permit for that. And you didn't get a permit for this. Hallelujah! That is fantastic. You know when you hear that I've got my permit for the Second Amendment, for my guns, it's called the Second Amendment. He's got his permit to have this event. It's called the First Amendment. Okay? Now, which we just named 4 out of the First Amendment. We left off one. What was the other one? To file grievances against government. So we're doing all of those here. We're having freedom of speech. We prayed. We're having freedom of religion. We have the right to peaceably assemble. We've got the press here. And how free that is up to them. Yeah. All right, so we're exercising the First Amendment here in protection of the Second Amendment. And that's exactly how it goes, because they go hand in hand. It's not a cafeteria. You don't get to pick and choose which one we're going to keep. We're keeping them all. We're not here just for the Second Amendment. We're here for all of our rights. No exceptions, all the time, freedom, 10th Amendment, all the way down to the First Amendment, and first back up to the 10th. We're not making any exceptions for any of them. Our politicians have a hard time with the English language. So I'm really glad that Gavin read that part, because so many of the politicians, you got to get the peanut butter out of their ears. Because when you say shall not be infringed, they don't hear that not part. They think it says shall be infringed. And that's why they continue to do this. Have they ever looked at world history? Have they ever looked at really the history of gun control throughout the world? Have they ever looked at that and seen what it does? Who's the greatest gun control fanatic in world history? Hitler. Why do our politicians in Washington emulate Adolf Hitler? And they think that there's no problem. Yeah. So I did a study. I did a book about that. I've written lots of books. And I wrote a book about that very issue. Because your politicians want you to believe that gun control is magic. And so I wrote a book called The Magic of Gun Control. And you see, why would it be magic? The only way that gun control could ever be magic is if it did something good. If it provided any benefit to any of you, even to your children. Now, I have 5 children, and we have 12 grandchildren. 12. You're supposed to say, I don't look that old. Thank you very much. But my dear friends, the reason I came all the way from Arizona is because I love all of you, and I love my grandkids, and I love my country. So the reason I came here was God, family, and country. And I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't have time to come here. I didn't. I went to Washington, D.C. on Monday. I got home yesterday afternoon. I changed clothes and shaved and went to Tucson to a meeting. That was 2 hours away from where I live. I drove back, got home at 10:30, packed for this trip, left this morning at 5 o'clock, and got here this afternoon. And then they called me from the church and reminded me that I have to teach Sunday school tomorrow. And Monday I'll be in Minnesota. And so we're keeping busy because you know why? The threat to our freedoms is so real. And this is the most crucial time in American history since the Civil War. And we are the generation to decide if we're going to remain a free constitutional republic or if we're going to succumb to political correctness and lose our way and lose our freedoms and lose our constitution and lose our liberty and enslave ourselves and our children with this notion that somehow gun control will be magic if we try it in America. It will do something good for you, even though in world history it never has. If you want magic, the book says, if you want magic, go to Vegas or Disneyland. And you can see the illusions there, because that's what gun control, it's a big, fat lie illusion. And now, some of you might not know, but the reason I'm here is because when I was sheriff, I'm not a sheriff anymore. I train and work with sheriffs all over the country. We had dozens of sheriffs that were in Washington, D.C. this week to oppose Obama's amnesty plan. And we were fighting that. And we let them know that the sheriffs aren't going to put up with this. Well, no sheriff, and there's lots of cops around here. Have you seen the cops walking around here? That's great. I'm glad they're here. No cop, no law enforcement officer, no peace officer, no sheriff should tolerate these laws at all and say we aren't going to allow them in our jurisdiction. Do you know that we actually have sheriffs in California doing that? We have sheriffs in New York fighting the SAFE Act and telling the governor there, we're not going to enforce it. That's what you need to do here in Washington. No sheriff, no peace officer, no chief of police, none of them should enforce this monstrosity and this constitutional abomination. No way. So, I did that when I was sheriff in 1994. I was the first sheriff in American history to sue the federal government to stop gun control. It was the Brady Bill. And you know that it actually worked. We took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and we won. I was all by myself. Nobody did it. The NRA, I called them and I said, hey, I want to sue on the Brady Bill. Can you give me some legal advice? And the attorney's name for the NRA was Richard Gardner. And he said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case. We've just been praying that a sheriff would call. You're him. I said, okay, this sounds like we're an answer to each other's prayer. So we did it. And 6 other sheriffs joined the lawsuit from all across the country. No one from Washington. No one from Oregon. No one from California. Nobody. There was a sheriff from Montana, Sheriff Prince, Sheriff Coog from Texas, Sheriff McGee from Mississippi, Sheriff Romippi,